Bryan Johnson recently came out and admitted that he has an autoimmune condition of the gut. The internet has been full of discourse on what he should have been doing, what he shouldn't be doing, how he needs to heal it. And although I'm just another voice in the sea of people with unsolicited advice, I have a unique perspective because I used to have Crohn's disease. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease when I was 11 years old. I was hospitalized, given blood transfusions, took days to figure out what it was. And I lived the next 10 years of my life on medications for autoimmune disease, all the way up into using very strong, expensive biologic medications like Humira. But for the past 3 years, I have been on zero medications. I've had zero incidents of symptoms of an autoimmune disease, and I've effectively cured my autoimmune disease. But before we get into what I would do to try to fix Bryan Johnson, the advice that I would give him based on my experience, first we have to go into what is an autoimmune disease. Well, specifically an autoimmune disease of the gut. If you go to the doctor with an autoimmune disease, he's going to tell you essentially your body is attacking itself. Your immune system sees some part of the gut as a foreign invader and it's attacking, which then causes massive inflammation. It can cause ulcers, massive damage to different parts of the gut. And their explanation for why this is happening is essentially, I don't know, it's genetic. But of course, if it's just genetic, it does not account for the massive rise in autoimmune disease, especially autoimmune gut diseases that we've seen over the past decades. And if we look deeper into what the treatments are for autoimmune disease, we can see what the actual problems are. When you get into the higher classes of autoimmune disease medication, specifically biologic medications, things like Remicade, Humira, they're monoclonal antibodies that are meant to target a specific inflammatory marker. The one I was on, Humira, targets TNF, tumor necrosis factor. There's other ones that are designed to target things like IL-6. But essentially all they do is go and target and neutralize inflammatory mediators, which means the treatment for the disease is to lower inflammation. And of course, that's what's causing the disease in the first place. There's so much inflammation in an area that the immune system is then activated and you get a autoimmune response. So when I first set out to cure my own Crohn's disease, my question was, how do I cure the inflammation? Because the inflammation is the key to all of this. And chronic inflammation is just an inability to heal something. So what is required to heal something? Energy. Without your body physically having enough energy in the form of ATP, it cannot heal inflammation, and then it constantly gets worse, spirals out of control, becomes an autoimmune disease. So the short answer of what is causing Bryan Johnson's autoimmune disease, it is inflammation in his gut. And we can start to see why that's a factor if you just look at what he's eating. He's on a vegan diet that is mostly plant matter. And this plant matter is not only full of things called anti-nutrients that we know are inflammatory, but they sit in the gut and ferment, and they allow various species of bacteria to overgrow and cause bacterial overgrowth, which when it gets bad enough is referred to as small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or large intestinal bacterial overgrowth. These bacteria die and they produce something called endotoxin, which is one of the most inflammatory substances that your body is exposed to. And this massive amount of endotoxin derived inflammation in the gut then degrades your ability to ingest nutrients. It degrades the integrity of the gut lining, and things just spiral out of control. And the reason they're able to spiral out of control is because you do not have enough energy to repair the gut. You see, the gut is one of the most energy intensive systems in the body. Its cell turnover rate is extremely high, which means the cells need replacing very fast, which means it has some of the highest energy demands in the body. But where does energy come from in the body? Well, it's primarily produced in the mitochondria of the cell, and it's regulated by the thyroid and thyroid hormones. And if we look at Bryan Johnson's approach to health, one of the core tenets of what he's been trying to do is to lower his energy production. He's intentionally trying to lower his heart rate, lower his temperature, which are both metabolic indicators. They're an indicator of how much energy your body is producing. His entire strategy has been centered around slowing down his energy production and eating massive amounts of food that are known to cause inflammation in the gut. And when you look at it through that lens, it's not really that hard to see why he developed an autoimmune condition from this. But it also means that the keys to solving it are probably in reversing those two things, raising his energy production and lowering the amount of inflammation in his gut. And those things go hand in hand because you need energy to lower the inflammation. You need the energy to heal the damage. And that brings me to some of the things that I did when I was first curing my Crohn's disease. My main focus was on maximizing energy production. So of course, the base layer of that is diet, looking to what actually helps the body produce energy. Of course, it's going to be getting all of your micronutrients in, specifically minerals and B vitamins, which a lot of people are deficient in. They're not eating a diet that has sufficient quantities of any of these micronutrients. That's the first level. And then we have to look at what is the best energy substrate? What does your body like to use to convert to energy? And the answer to that is carbohydrates, but not carbohydrates that are able to ferment in the gut and feed these bacteria and feed the bacterial overgrowth. So not starchy carbs, not fibrous carbs, but simple, easily oxidizable carbohydrates like fruit, like honey, like maple syrup. Your body's able to easily convert these into energy. So a high carbohydrate, high micronutrient diet, eating things like red meat, organs, oysters, eggs, lots of fruit and honey and juice, lots of dairy, milk, cheese. But of course, we can't expect just switching the diet to cure an autoimmune disease. I know a lot of people will say, oh, you just have to eat real food and then you'll cure the autoimmune disease. It's deeper than that. There's a serious problem, and you're not going to address it by doing just the minimum baseline, which is eating a good diet. So one of the other things that helped me a lot was doing very high dose thiamine therapy. When I talk about high dose, I mean in the order of grams a day of thiamine hydrochloride. And the reason for this is very simple. You have 3 stages of oxidative metabolism. You have glycolysis, you have the citric acid cycle, and you have the electron transport chain. And there's rate limiting steps going in and out of each of those steps. And thiamine plays a critical role in the rate limiting step between glycolysis and the citric acid cycle. This is where substrate goes from the cytoplasm of the cell into the mitochondria, called pyruvate dehydrogenase, and thiamine is a critical cofactor in that reaction. And there's another enzymatic reaction that happens in the Krebs cycle that is one of the rate limiting steps of the Krebs cycle before you go into the electron transport chain. So taking high doses of thiamine is able to essentially open the gates of your metabolism and allow all the substrate to flow through efficiently in order to produce the most amount of ATP. And the third thing that helped me the most with curing my Crohn's disease is going to be a little bit controversial, but it was the strategic use of antibiotics. Bacterial overgrowth in the gut is one of the biggest problems that people in the West are facing. Even if you do not have an autoimmune disease, a large majority of you do have overgrown guts, and it's causing low-grade chronic inflammation. And the way out of this is to go kill off some of the bacteria. And you can do this in more natural ways with things like rosemary oil and neem. But since I had a more serious case, I had actual Crohn's disease, I chose to use a tetracycline, which is a class of antibiotic that is very, very good at killing bacteria in the gut, but it's very mild overall. And it also has the added benefit of being very anti-inflammatory. So doing multiple courses of tetracyclines in combination with using binders like activated charcoal. The whole goal is basically to go in, kill off a lot of bacteria, and when they die, they produce endotoxin. And then you want to go in and bind this endotoxin with things like activated charcoal and drag it out of the system. And that, in combination with high dose thiamine therapy, with changing my diet, with changing my lifestyle, getting a lot more sun exposure, fixing my circadian rhythm, just through simple things like going to bed and waking up at the same time every day, over the course of about a year, allowed me to completely get rid of all gut symptoms. I've had no trace of an autoimmune disease, and I've been on no medication for 3 years now. And those are some of the things that I would suggest that Bryan Johnson look into, because a lot of the things that he's been avoiding or actively trying to do are the same things that have led to him having this autoimmune disease. His very inflammatory diet, full of hard to digest plant fibers that are full of anti-nutrients, intentionally lowering his energy production and essentially freezing his body, allowing all this damage in his gut to go out of control because he physically does not have the energy production to be able to create new tissue and heal. His avoidance of the sun, his avoidance of animal products, and relying too much on markers and not enough on his own experience. There's no way that he was not having gastrointestinal symptoms this whole time, that he was just ignoring because the blood work looked fine. And all of these subjects get a lot deeper. This is just one video that's trying to cover a bunch of very broad topics. If you want to learn more about all of these specific topics, I have a community where this is exactly what we do. This is all we talk about: energy production, gut issues, lowering inflammation. We actually have protocols for all of these things, for high dose thiamine therapy, various levels of protocols for getting rid of bacterial overgrowth and endotoxin. We have protocols, deep, in-depth lessons for all of this. And if you're interested in making a big change to your own health and learning more about energy production, how it intersects with autoimmune disease, and much, much more, the link to my community will be the first link in the description.